Hello and welcome. These aren't cream. Why am I showing you these? So we painted these recently and I got a very sensible suggestion from a viewer, thank you very much, in the comments. So please put your suggestions for a future video down below that we should do cream cloaks because they can be pretty tricky. We're going to do exactly that. I've got 3 of the same style of cloak. We're going to do them in a very different color. I'm going to take you through some simple steps and some rules that you can follow whether you're using the same colors as ours or not at all. And you'll be able to improve your painting of your cream cloaks because done well, they can really make or break an army, and cream works with almost any color. Suggestions down below if you can think of a Space Marine armor color that doesn't work with cream. But before we begin, we have some simple rules to follow, and these will make your life easier when you're approaching this type of thing in your own painting. So let's go. So what do I mean by go soft? What I mean by that is you will have a much easier time painting cream if you take smaller jumps between your colors. So while you might have a temptation to start off quite dark, or if you're going over a black base coat and you need to get something down really easily, I would recommend starting probably with a lighter color than you would consider normally. One very simple way to do that is you can take your mid-tone, whatever your second paint is going to be, and you can mix it in with your first color. You can add a little bit of a strong whiter paint in and start from a custom base color you mix up yourself, whatever you like. This will help you to go smooth because if you're taking smaller jumps up in between your colors, each one will be less noticeable. And what that means is your mistakes, if you do have any, which you normally do, will be smaller. Small jumps in color. What is going to aid and help you in painting cloaks? Number one, we've covered it before, especially in our purple cloaks video where I used a size 6. I would recommend using a minimum of a size 4 if you're doing work like this. There is no reason, especially in the beginning stages, to use anything smaller whatsoever. I will link 4s down below, or 4s, 5s, or 6s, just single brushes. Pick up one of these if you're on the fence, and let us know in 3 months or 6 months if it's not the best brush you've ever used, because they are outstanding. Big brushes help you work faster. Working faster helps you work smoother. You could do wet blending if you want, but you don't have to. We probably won't in this. Wet blending is optional. Now, I'm going to do a contrast one as well, but we're going to start off with a traditional one. And I want to show you an example on this sheet of paper, what I mean about starting with a lighter color or mixing colors or, helping yourself out with smaller jumps up in color, just so you've seen it on the screen. So taking some cappuccino. Cappuccino, you can tell just by looking at it here, even though it's a little bit off screen, it's got a fair bit of white in it. It's a pretty light color. So rather than starting from this darker one, you could choose just to start from a lighter one straight away. That will help you out. So let's say that our first color is this. It's going to look dark because it's on white, but bear in mind on black that would look pretty light. Starting with that instead of with this, that will make your life easier. Or you could do a 50-50 between them. Whatever you do, that's lighter than that. So the same goes for your following colors. It's up to you how light you want to go, but I would be careful with going to white too soon. That is a very common mistake. So you can see here that's much lighter. You have the option, of course, to make a lighter equivalent between these. And the smaller these jumps, the smaller these steps, the easier your painting will go. Normally, you're going to have a super light final step. However sparing you are with it, you can just mix that into the color that you already have. So if I do that here off to the side, at any time you can take your light, strong color. Doesn't have to be a white, but it's going to be a cream or something like that with good coverage. You could add it into any of these to make them behave better. If you start from a white base, it's going to be easy to get a good base coat with whatever you're doing. We did that with these cloaks. So that's probably appearing on screen right now. Anyway, that's the foundations. That's what we're going to do. If you're working with contrast, you do the same stuff, but it actually happens in a different order. So it's kind of like you start here with contrast, and then you wash it down to here. But what you need to do in this section is this has to be soft. And I will underline soft as many times as is needed. Sorry, I was off screen. So this has to be the case. You've got to do that. If this is too strong, that is the same mistake as starting off too dark here. And the only way to fix that, if you do that, is to basically do all of your base coat again, but leave it out of the folds, that is your option to fix it. So if not soft, as a highlight. I appreciate that's a few more words than you were probably expecting in this situation. We're going to apply these though, and it will help you immeasurably. Anyone wondering why I've left 3 here? That's whatever you like. Honestly, it could be a pure version of either of your light colors. It could be 90% of 90% light color. Whatever it is, you're going to use it sparingly, and you will get a better result in your white capes if there is the least pure white on them possible. So whatever you're using, whether you're actually going to white or incorporating white or using an off-white, you need it to be light but sparing. Hopefully you can see in that progression how that would look pretty good. You can vary any of these however much you want, and if you want a method that involves washes, stick around throughout number 1, because we will use the principles of Cloak 1 in Cloaks 2 and 3. Let's jump in. All right, we have 3 almost identical cloaks. Time to get these primed up, and we'll go again. First example is going to be going from a black base with normal paints. I've got some nice drab colors here, drab browns. Cappuccino is a little bit like a cooler version of Baneblade, I would say. Olive's going to be our dark one. Plenty colors like this. If you're missing a color like this, you can just take a color like Baneblade and mix a drab green in it. You've got Castellan Green from Games Workshop. That would be a GW equivalent of that. Stone. And then if required, we have our stronger paint, Tusk, here. We don't know if we're going to need this one yet. So already this is a color that's making me think of cloth or natural things. And I know that this one will do a pretty decent job of base coating as well. So that's what we're going to do. Size 4, slap it down. We have a video on base coating, which I would really recommend watching if you haven't. One of the main things to remember is you can only cause problems really if you're putting wet paint on drying paint. So that's what we're going to aim to not do. And the best ways to ensure you don't do that is to work really quick and not revisit areas unless you've just done them. I wouldn't worry too much about dilution or getting it perfect, especially on the first coat. Your aim is just to get down a first coat. I'll do this twice and then we'll be good to go. If you want to start from a really light base, you might have to do something like this anyway, with paints that are good at covering over black. So whatever you're starting from, probably, if you're going by hand, it's going to involve an undercoat base coat step. Second coat, I imagine, will go pretty much perfectly. It's amazing what happens. Just get any version of your first coat down. Second coats always go better. Now in this one, you do want to be a little bit more careful with making sure you don't miss anywhere. You've got to catch absolutely everywhere, so you can go a bit slower, but still work section by section and don't cover drying paint with wet paint. Wet on dry, never in the middle. Okay, we have our base coat. This is a fantastic color. This is often what you will get if you mix your paints. Rather than just using an out of the pot one, of course you can do that, but I would really readily consider just putting a little bit of a color like Castellan in with yours if you're not using ours. Ours are beautifully smooth as well, of course, so that really helps things look nice, especially in starting steps. This is now my control. I know that is my base color. This was started from black. This is over black, so that's a really good indication. And now next to it, I can mix up my next step pretty easily just by glancing between one and the other. And I want to make sure that this jump is not too big, right? That's probably too light. Now we're getting into a more reasonable range. So your aim is to not make the difference between this and this too much. The bigger the difference, the less forgiving it is, if you remember our kind of beginning example. This is quite diluted with water, but it's still a pretty strong color. And we're going to follow a really simple rule, which is what's facing up or what's sticking out. If something's doing both, we're definitely going to hit it. And if it's doing one, we're probably going to hit it as well. And we're not too worried about being neat at this stage at all. Big brush will force you to not worry about being too pointy and fancy. So just get some color down there. It's faster for you to work quicker with smaller jumps. than slower with big jumps and having to be precise and think about mistakes or whatever else. We are just rolling through this at a pretty decent pace, and it's fun and we're enjoying it, and we're also learning about the shape of our cloak. And that's probably the most important thing, and the thing that people underappreciate the most, which is that this is very educational at this step. So I'm just observing how it's gone. If anything looks bad, maybe I can half fix it later, but we're not worrying or stressing at this point whatsoever. Also, due to the wonder that is big fat brushes, I might manage to do the entirety of this with a single brush full of paint, which is just wonderful. Using my egg to get the right angles. Check out the eggs below. There are painting handles. See, I made a mistake there. I went into a fold. Probably I won't even need to fix it because we didn't jump up too much in color. I'm covering a lot of the cloak here. A lot. Everything but underneath, basically, or inside very folds. Okay, even though I was talking, that didn't take too long. Let it dry 100%, and then it's pretty easy. We do what we did here again. Bear in mind, if you only add paint and you don't add water, it will get stronger, but I've still got quite a bit of water in my brush. I imagine this will be okay. We're just going to start on a lighter section again. Now that looks like quite a big jump up, and often you'll be slightly surprised by how this looks on the model. It doesn't look as strong as it did on the palette. Just start somewhere you know you're going to want to highlight these very edges and make your observations off that. Give yourself time to adjust. And bear in mind that if you go right in the middle of a section that you know is going to want to be light anyway, like this one, I'll do it carefully because it is a bit stronger. Pause, let it dry, then see if you think it's too much. If it is, you can just paint over it. I think they were just about okay, but I am going to have to go a little bit more carefully. And I'll add a bit more water too. Never hurts. This is already looking good. We still want to cover a lot of it. Tracing my pinky on my egg. Everything is good. So yeah, as we were before, you're going to cover the majority of what you did last time. And still, we're not too worried about whether it looks fancy or perfect. And the fact that you need to cover a lot of it, that's relaxing, if anything. All right, so we pretty much did that with one brush full again. My brush was starting to dry out at the end, so especially with paints that have white in them, I'd be careful of that because the whiter paints are the ones that are, it's hot in the UK. The whiter paints are the ones that dry out faster, as we can see on my palette, and they're also the ones that are going to be the most grainy. Even in our range, which is incredibly smooth, the higher the percentage of white in a paint, comparatively, the more grainy they often are. That's pretty inescapable, so you've got to be more careful as you go rather than less careful, and especially in hot weather or as brushes are drying out, that's more of a thing. Using a less strong paint is normally going to be the same as using a smoother paint, not always, but often. So I'm going to make use of that here. Now this is quite a big jump. I've got a fair bit of water in there, but just as the last go, this could be and should be our final highlight, I believe. Especially if we're just going for, you know, looking solid on the tabletop. I think I might have gone a bit too far, but that's fine. I probably should have just put less of my strong one in. Maybe I didn't even need it. So like I said, when I show you the example at the start, that strong paint, that final paint is to be used sparingly and with other colors. You're not just going to slap down a white or an off-white pure, and still you'll give the indication of a cream cloak really well, right? This area is going to end up lighter. Yeah, I think we're good. Just about we're good. It's about not rushing into it though. I think we've got room for a final highlight on the upward facing bits, maybe, but we'll just make that decision when we're ready, when we've put all this down. So we're shrinking our area, we're building up the lighter stuff, but it's still pretty soft. We're still going for the bits that stick out. Okay, so tricky bit here, underside the fold, my brush is drying out and splitting. I'm just going to do a couple of little strokes here, making use of the fact that my big brush just became a small brush. Or two small brushes. Thank you, current UK heatwave. All right. Now at this final stage, I have dropped down a brush size to a smaller one, and we are going to be sparing here. We catch anything really exposed or really facing up. This is optional, absolutely optional. And of course it's up to you. You can just observe where things are at. While you go in, and when you want to stop, stop. Remember, you can always look at your click from the top, and anything that is just out sticking up or is obviously facing upwards, dilation is your friend if you're a bit scared, and make sure that your brush is not flooded. Mine was a little bit there, and that's kind of what's caused that error. Yep, it's up to you how far you want to go. Very often, if you are willing to add a little bit more, it kind of pulls attention away from any weaker areas. So that's probably the main reason that I would advise doing something like this. If you don't think you can do straight lines, it's material, remember. You can just highlight by dotting with the side of your brush, and maybe that's going to make it look more like it's a softer organic material than power armor, especially if this is then going to go on a figure that has power armor. When you are comfortable with your dilution, which can become after some tests, then maybe you're feeling brave enough to pop it into more exposed areas. And remember, if you keep it kind of flowing down the material, often that's going to be a more forgiving weight, and you can do lots of little passes. It's an organic material, it's not going to be uniform. Popping down a great big flat stroke is more likely to show up a mistake or a misplacement. So I'm just braced off. I'm doing my little strokes that aren't completely opaque. And they're not that much lighter than my previous color was either. There we go. If you literally do want to make it like crisscross cloth, again, optional. Get your paint until it's really low, there's not much on the brush. Try it somewhere that isn't scary, like literally on a highlight. Then either with little strokes or by literally dabbing the edge of your brush. The most important thing is that whatever you do is small. They don't have to be neat. They don't have to be that uniform, although you should try. Like literally nothing matters as long as they're not great big blobs that look like misapplied, heavy-handed highlights. So use the side of your brush, test elsewhere, don't oversaturate. You might surprise yourself. You need so little paint on your brush, and the stronger it is, the less you will need. You can see I've literally gone until the brush is kind of bent and dried out of paint here. Better that than going too heavy. Fantastic. Okay, cloak number 2. Now, this is a fantastic contrast, but it definitely falls into the realms of one of those ones that you just, if you need to get in a stick and stir it up, do, but you have to shake it or stir it or mix it or whatever it until you just cannot see any sediment in the bottom. So don't get tennis elbow. See you in 3 minutes. All right, so we've shaken it a lot. I did actually have to stick stir it in the end. You'll notice that there's blue evident in Apothecary White, and it doesn't mean that it's cold, but I wouldn't say it's a warm contrast. We've got some test squares here, always a good idea. Big fan of testing on this channel in general. So let's see how it looks over the various colors. Now it's definitely in the gray spectrum, and I think you just have to put this over a really light background, otherwise it doesn't work. It's been designed like that as a contrast. So here we have a white scar. It was Chaos Black. We sprayed white scar on it and from above. However, white scar can be a little bit fluffy, especially if you do successive layers. It can build up and be a bit grainy. I think I've just about stopped soon enough on this one. But what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to slap this straight over that. We'll go for a speedy method. I want to see though if I would benefit from adding in a little bit of something else, like Skeleton Horde. And I think that makes quite a cool color. So we'll do one final test in a dish, and we're gonna cross our fingers and hope. It's a very small amount of testing, granted, but yeah, hopefully this works out for the best. You can, of course, soften this with medium. Apothecary Grey. The dottiest of dots. Skeleton Horde, so that was too much. I'll actually remove a load. All right, that's done what I wanted. It's kind of made it a bit, I don't know, there's some really nice colors that GW do, like Skaven Blight. That's made it closer to that. I'm gonna grab a little contrast medium. Actually, I think it's okay. I'll take the tiniest dot of water, and we're just gonna go straight down. Pick your orientation. For me, that is almost horizontal, but slightly tipping towards me, so stuff will drain down, and I'm gonna very carefully keep it at that and exactly that for all of this process. So I'm starting in one area, using a big brush, and excess is being mopped up and redistributed elsewhere. Just like our base coating tips, which I said we'd be applying what we learned from the first one, the following ones, even if we're changing technique and material and application. You want wet on wet or wet on dry, but never wet on drying, and that's even more the case for contrast, especially over something as unforgiving as a heavy white zenithal, which is predominantly white. Then we're just going to sweep around and we're going to do mopping up fixes. So we don't want any drifts, any excessive buildup. Don't want any missed areas. You can see here we've got a big drift, so we'll just mop it up with a big brush. And we are not going to fiddle around with our orientation because terrible things will happen. So, see how carefully I'm mopping up there. Find these heavy areas, pull it out. That has turned out pretty well for incredibly fast application. I'm gonna let it dry fully, and then we're gonna probably bring out some following steps. Okay, so at this point, we're not gonna be using contrast medium because I find I have more problems with contrast medium than I do with Lamian. Even if they do slightly different things, it just doesn't seem as stable to me. So we're gonna be taking our Lamian medium and we'll be making a very soft mix. Now you can, because this is gonna be 90-something% Lamian medium and a very small percentage of whatever else you put in it, because we're aiming for something so soft, you can use literally anything. You could use a paint, you could use a contrast. I could use Castellan Green here, I could put in some more Skeleton Horde. It's whatever you want, whatever you think is a cool color. And don't worry if it's a very strong color, just put less of it in. So I'm gonna try and lean towards things being a little bit dirtier, lower down, and I'm gonna reach for every single person's favorite shade, or one of theirs. If this is not one of your favorite shades, why not? That's probably too much. Maybe I would have benefited from using a brush that was little bit more. I think we're okay. With that very soft mix. All right. In fact, I need to clean my dish. This is asking for troubles. There's little specks floating around. I will return. Now, unless you're using Blitz or like a high quality kitchen roll here, when cleaning out something like this, you got to clean it out. Is this going to show up? There's going to be fluffs in there now. So you got to clean it out with your toilet roll and then clean it out with like a licked finger or something, just to take any remaining fibers away. They're not a good idea. You don't want them in any wash normally, and anything that you're doing that involves white, it's the least forgiving place possible for anything like that. So do that, and then finger in painting water or licked finger. Do a couple of rounds of it and just make sure you have neither particles of paint or fluff. Or of course you could use a microfiber or a glasses cloth like a sensible person and not worry about anything. Take 2. Lamia medium, which is itself contaminated. No surprise on this channel. See here how thin it is. Now I'm going to test this on the bottom of our cloak and we will see if it is a good idea or a bad idea. That's completely fine. Taking my strokes downwards. And we could have been a bit braver, but that's fine. You can put agrax in here. You can use this as a way to make things look more dirty. You can use it as a way to exaggerate folds. And because this is so soft, you just aim for the fold and then drag over all of it. And you'll gently build up. Whatever you do, unless it's somewhere that's super textured, you're probably going to have to hit the entire area. So be aware that your entire cloak is going to get tinted in the direction of the color of your choosing. But it's not much of a big deal, especially if it's a soft color that you've made. You can use a smaller color and try and line down recesses. That's slower, it's more delicate, but you'll get a more punchy impact and you can keep it away from the raised areas. Up to you, whatever you like. You can, while it's wet, he says, without having prepared for this, you could wet blend. Another fantastic shade, Kelia. Obviously this is more clean green and dirty green. You can, while it's wet, you can evolve way more than just the one. And probably it won't look that bad. Even a mistake won't show up that much. So it's just a very cool way to paint. It's pretty fun, pretty free and easy. You can involve stuff you wouldn't think normally. And as long as you don't go wet on drying, that rule that we keep repeating, you should be fine whatever you do. That's dry. Not sure how adequately this shows up, but that is a really interesting kind of classic painting looking white. There's a load of cool stuff going on there. I really like how this looks. It's completely up to you how you want to play it. Maybe the idea of mixing different colors whilst wet is a bit much. So you can just do it dry. But particularly around the bottom of it in the deep folds, like I said, you can be pretty casual. For me, it stands to reason that the cloak would be dirtier at the bottom. It can change personality as it gets further down. It'd be hit more by light at the top. There's loads of different ways that you could justify pretty much anything you want to do here, as long as you apply it somewhat consistently. I love it. I love that change from the zenithal we had at the top to darker at the bottom, because there's more of the black that was evident despite the white prime. And then stacked on top of that, or with that, we've got the result of this, and it's all fast and it's all loose and it's all easy. Sure, some of you saw this coming. Time for Series D. Brand new foam. People ask me about foams, by the way. I just replaced my foam of 3 years at the point at which I nearly went through it, so they last for a very long time. I do prefer foams once they've been broken in, but it doesn't take too long to break them in. Right, pure white here. This will be used very sparingly. Of course, as per our rules at the start of the video, you can add a little bit of something else in if you're worried about this. So in our situation, the aim isn't to make it a different color, it's just to stop it from being pure white, even though this isn't like a dangerously strong one. I'm using a big brush here. I've got an extra large D. Start from the top where it's going to be the lightest. I've got it blue tacked to my egg pretty solidly. And if you can tell that nothing is happening, you've started safely and you should be very proud. Do let your washers fully dry as well, because you might get fluff stuck to them. I think we chose a good level. So I'm just going to incrementally add a little bit of white. Take care. Test on the back of my thumb. This looks cool. This was crazy efficient. Like I say, we're being, the fact that this is a soft white, not in color, but in strength and in potency, it's kind of like middle strength as a paint. This is helping, because if it was a strong one, we'd probably be making some very big, very not reversible, noticeable mistakes at this point. I reckon we are good there. That looks great.
Super classic. All
right, Cloak number 3. And this is normally where we do something a little bit more hybrid in approach, and there's going to be no exception this time around. So my base coat has gone between two of the paints we've used so far, which is Stone and Tusk from Mini Color. One of these is strong, one of them is weaker and smoother. It's a good way to use combined paints. I think probably people will end up adding Mini Color paints to other paints in the future for this reason, to make them smoother. So we've got a really good smooth base coat. It's quite light. I did it over the same zenithal we had in the previous step. You could airbrush it, hand coat it, whatever, it doesn't matter too much. Now we're going to be doing some shading from below. And I think potentially this is the best way to do white cloaks, but it is also the scariest, and it's just not done. I don't think I've seen anyone doing army painting tutorials for painting cloaks in this way anywhere. Could be wrong, feel free to correct me on that, but it works really well on our red ones. Red is more forgiving than cream. Most things are more forgiving than cream. So what we're going to do to sort that out? This is our color, our mix. Part way between these two. This is what we're working with here. And very simply, we're just going to add a little bit of something else to that, and we're going to use it for shading. Now that sounds a bit reductive, but trust me, as long as you don't add too much, and this color is close, remember what we've been talking about since the very beginning, things should go better than you'd think. And this could be anything. This could be a green, you could put a bit of a shade in there. You don't need to do much to affect a color this light. So the tiniest smidge, or you can take less than that. Here, that is enough. And you can always make it darker. So take our cloak, the very opposite of what we did last time. Yeah, so it is too soft, that's okay. Better than too dark. The very same thing we did last time, we're doing the opposite of. So instead of things that face up, we're doing things that face down. Maybe that wasn't too soft actually. Let's see if I've now gone too far. I don't think so, but I could be wrong. Yeah, I think we're good. So we are hitting the underneath. And if this goes wrong, if you go over your edges, exactly like with our red cloaks, it's fine. You don't need to worry about it. Very, very simple. Having an egg or a painting handle will really help you approach from the right angle. You're just catching your underneath. And it is pretty obvious on cloaks normally what's underneath. You can either do it by looking from underneath or putting it at this angle with a very harsh light in the way and seeing where shadows are. Either way, completely fine. Notice I'm not worrying about it getting where it shouldn't get too much. I'm just making sure I do get it where it needs to get. If it goes over an edge or a lip or whatever, just try to chill out and don't think of that as an irreversible mistake, because it isn't. We'll absolutely fix that pretty easily too. So once you've had your lesson in letting go, you should have something that looks a little bit like this. I'm just going to complete it and then we'll do the next step. Next step, just add a little bit more of your darker color in. I am using a 1 now, using a smaller brush, and I'm just going in those deep folds. Again, you're not going for perfection, and it doesn't matter if you don't get perfection at all. If you look at this from arm's length now, not like 1 foot away, but 3 feet away, I imagine you might kind of see what things are going to end up like. And really that's where you should be judging your piece from, especially for army painting. But at an early stage, worrying about perfection is normally a waste of time, and sadly it normally leads to your end result being worse. So we're not going to be doing that. Oops, little slip. Like I said, just don't worry about them. They happen. Pretty fast going as well. Dry brush time. So a little bit annoyed at my new sponge not being broken in the last one, so I'm going to see if I can put some quick mileage through the sponge. They're kind of crispy and fresh when they're new. This is now getting towards that used feeling, not bouncing around, much better, so my preference. You guessed it, we're just mixing up our base color, and we're going to dry brush that gently and generally all over our piece. There's not, we're not trying to do an angle or stippling or anything. It's literally like if it sticks out, it gets hit. That's it. Not complicated dry brushing at all, not technical dry brushing really, but we just need to really concentrate on keeping things soft, not going too heavy, and doing our tests before we get to the model to make sure we don't do something we regret. And these should soften up everything. You're not looking to make a big difference here. Just to pull everything together, hide any slips, and take your time. Whatever you are doing now, you're going to be going way faster than you would be in any other way because of the massive brush. So yeah, don't try and speed it up any further because you will make a mistake. Just keep going until you're happy. Obviously, you can increase the proportion of the lighter one a bit if you think that you've gone too subtle. Here's what things look like when you increase that lighter one. This should be pretty noticeable pretty fast. The areas that you'll see it first are areas like this little fold that sticks out a bit more here. I would imagine, I would hazard a guess. Yeah. This is very physical dry brushing, so my blue tack won't hold it. If you want it to be less physical, you can use a little bit more paint on the brush, remove a little less, use a little bit more moisture from the dampening pad, but that does come with more risk, so it's up to you. So good for the time. Now, it's up to you. You could dry brush this step. I will be. Or you could glaze it, or you could layer it, edge highlight it, whatever you want. And you don't actually have to do this step if you don't want to. It's up to you how light you want to go. I'm involving a little bit of our white, which, as I've said a few times, is a soft one. Good stuff. What's next but weathering? So here we have three very different styles, very different approaches. A lot of them, you can use a hybrid combination of the techniques. Like we could do the smudgy washes at the bottom of this one, it'd look really, really good. You could do some layering here. There is one particular area where a wash hasn't been obscured by our dry brushing just because of angles. So maybe that's an error that I would fix with a little bit of quick smudgy layering or glazing or something. You could also poke a smaller dry brush in there. That would work out either way. But what I'm going to do now is I want to show weathering. And these, you could do blood splatter, you could do some mud. And I think we can go for mud at the bottom of the cloak, because I think that looks great. So pick your color carefully, pick the one you think looks the most like mud. I am choosing the color mud from Mini Color. Then what we're going to do is make a pretty wet mix of it. And there are various ways you can go about doing this. I would do a combination of dry brushing and something else. You could also use actual pigments, but if you want the mud to look wet, one of your best ways is to kind of stipple the top part of it. And bear in mind that your cloth, just where it is on the model, you don't want like a flat line. It should be a line according to how far the mud would have splashed up or seeped up. So these edges here, probably they would have caught some as well. It's up to you how you want to approach it, but the best thing to do is just Google some Game of Thrones references, whatever else it might be, and take some suggestions off those and follow their lead. It is okay to get tidal marks because you're trying to emulate fabric, and that's what would happen on fabric in real life. So don't be too afraid of those. Don't try and do too much too fast at once, and build it up layer by layer. Make your decisions carefully. It wouldn't necessarily be more in the folds at all, so try and bear that in mind. But it is quite hard to stop your paint from running into them, so and the most important thing is pop. What a terrible time for my camera to cut off. All right, I've come back, and I've come back with a lighter background, so it's not throwing things into such harsh contrast or exposure. And I want to talk about how to go about doing this weathering and why I've done it how I have. I'll do a little bit more work on it, but the explanation is, I think, more important than that actual doing. Number one, just go slow. Think about where it'd be, go and look at some reference pictures of white cloaks from Game of Thrones. And what you'll notice is that, especially if you're going for that kind of medieval look, which I was, and with this one, there's going to be two lines of build-up of weathering on them. One is where water and moisture and long-term dirt has soaked in and up, and that will go higher. And the other one is where the actual dirt or splash mud, whether it be dry or wet, is. Now they're going to have a noticeable difference between them, and that's what I've tried to do with this line. Now the way to pick that color is to just have a little look at your cloak. You can put a wash over it and just build it up. Try and make a not too colorful one, but add in a little bit of a green or a blue. I've mentioned Castellan, and that's where you go for your initial stage of washes. And then whatever you do, just make sure that you have a distinct and noticeable line at the bottom with what you build up to with your other color. The very bottom of the cloak, so I still need to do it on this trim, and I'll do it here, it gets properly filthy and like black. If it's dragging on the floor regularly, it will be pretty disgusting. So you can go right down deep to a very dark color, no matter how light or dark your cloak is, and that'll look really cool. If you've got a darker model and a dark base, this will look very white in comparison. If I put this on a white background, on a black background, sorry, that looks much lighter. If it's against a light background, it looks a bit darker. So you might not need to go all the way to white. Just bear that in mind as an option. Okay, let's go for a little bit of careful glazy dabbing on the lip of it. You could do this with whatever brush you want, really. And you could indeed use repeated layers of a shade, and you could use the shade neat as well. Obviously I've got some water in the brush there, but you can see because you're going over the top of the browns already, it's going to make them more dark. And it's fine for there to be layers or patches that are or aren't different ones. If you go over white with this, with a color, it's just going to make it look like that color. If you go over brown, it's just going to further deepen the brown. You could add black in here, but this is the only area on the cloak that I would consider adding that black in. And don't use paint that's too strong. Just take your time, because taking your time will make sure you don't make a mistake or go too far too fast. Maybe if you're doing 20 of these, learn from the first 2 or 3, and you can go faster with stronger paints on the following ones. I'm going to give you a couple of tips for your contrast color of choice or whatever you're putting in. Obviously we've used a few. You can use Corellia. Brown is just safe for anything. It's, you know, you can have a brown cloak. If it's a dark angel though, you might want to use a little bit of a green. If you've used dark angel's green contrast, you can use a tiny bit of that put in, and then you'll get huge coherency between your cloak and your model just in the shadows, and there's a slight tint all over. It will look amazing. Your entire model will pull together beautifully. Either go that way or for contrast. So look up the color wheel. If you've got like a pretty pure green, not like a blue green or whatever, just go opposite the other side of it on the color wheel, and that'll give you a contrasting color option. Either of those is fine. Like I said, brown is safe, whatever you do. I think these look amazing. Thank you very much for tuning in. Let us know your suggestions down below for the next video.